All right, welcome back. So today I'm going to be talking about something that makes me extremely uncomfortable. It makes me feel weird. I don't like being associated with this shit normally, but I think it's right for me to talk about. And that's positive affirmations as a form of tiny improvements. Now, like if I can qualify this enough, like I legitimately, like I'm not the guy that usually likes this shit. It always made me feel weird. Whenever people would talk to me about it in high school and college, I would be like, yeah, whatever. But then I would try doing it and it would feel fake, it would feel gross, I would cringe. And then and then the people who also did positive affirmations, like usually they were like super hippies into like horoscopes and Sagittarius rising and all this shit. Now, if you're listening and you're into that, like I'm not necessarily judging you. I just personally I feel weird when I talk about that stuff with anyone, right? And so whenever people would do that, I would just like get cringe and I would be like, just get away from me. But over the past few months, and specifically over the past month, I've been trying to humble myself and really try and go on, what I consider to be my hero's journey. And really, the key for me is really stacking up and system and making habit out of tiny 1% improvements, because my belief and my faith is that over the course of several years, if I stay consistent on a daily basis improving my life in tiny ways, then I'll be in a much better spot than where I've kind of dug myself into. I'm in a pretty bad spot right now. So with that being said, positive affirmations did eventually come up in with one of my mentors, or one or two of my mentors, I suppose. And I was like, fuck, let me try it. And so I've been doing it for the past three weeks, and I do think that there is value. Now, again, this is a cringe topic, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna share with you a few things that I guess have convinced me that they are of value, right? And then I'll show you there are two ways that I make affirmations. There's kind of the big audacious affirmations, and then there's kind of the more affirmations to prepare me for future scenarios. So let me start with this. So the first thing you're going to get into, if you're into this kind of shit, or if you're looking into positive affirmations, you're going to eventually find some people who are like, man, it works so well on your subconscious and the reticular activating system, and it's going to refocus you and you're going to manifest it and all this shit. Like, I'm not that guy. I'm not going to pretend that I even believe that things get manifested or not. I'm not that guy. However, when I started looking into things like the reticular activating system, I do think that there was some merit. So I'm going to first play this video. I'll put it in the description, but it's called What Billionaires Use Secretly, which is also like a weird title. I hate titles like that. But I'm going to play this and then just talk to you a little bit about where I do find merit. And then I'll just, then we'll move on.
At the base of the brain, where it connects with the spinal cord, there is a region called the reticular activation system, known as RAS. The RAS acts like a filter that decides which thoughts to focus on at any one time. We need this filter system because every second there are about 8 million bits of information subconsciously flowing through our brain. There has to be a way to filter out the noise. The RAS decides which messages will arrive at the brain. Once a message gets past the RAS filter and enters the cerebrum, it can turn into conscious thoughts, emotions, or both. Even though the cerebrum is a center of thought, it will not respond to a message unless the RAS allows it. The RAS is like Google. There are millions of websites out there, but you filter out the ones you are not interested in simply by typing a keyword. You can also think of the RAS as the brain's gatekeeper to conscious thought. It's critical to your future that you learn how to get messages past the gatekeeper. So what causes some of the messages to get through the RAS and others to get blocked out? Whatever is important to you at the time and whatever you are currently focusing on gets through. If your focus is to buy a house in the Rocky Mountains, your RAS will automatically filter in thoughts that will help you get that house. This includes people who might help you, opportunities to make it happen, or resources that you might need. This means the more you keep your goals top of mind, the more your subconscious mind will work to reach them.
All right, that's about it. So, this shit, like, I think a lot of people push this too far in the self-help community where, like, you can manifest the house, right? Like, in this example. But I do think, first of all, it's common sense. It's like the more you're focused on anything, let's take the subconscious claims out of it. The more you're focused on something, the more you're going to be like looking for things that will help you with that goal, right? That is just kind of common sense to me. Now, as for whether the subconscious is filtering out conscious thoughts or conscious things, depending on what your goal or your focus is, this is one video. It doesn't really give any, I don't know if it gives any scientific evidence. I mean, in fact, it's getting into self-hypnosis and shit like that. So I'm not advocating for that. But I do think that there is merit to, the brain filtering things, right? Because if I'm not mistaken, I actually can validate that the brain can only process, or the conscious mind can only process a certain amount of information at a time. I don't have the book on me, but there is a book called Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, and he does have a chapter in the book where he talks about how it takes a lot. Like the brain, I think it takes like the conscious mind can only handle, if I'm remembering right, it can only handle like 40 bits of information consciously at a time. And depending on what you're focused on, like the outside world takes up a lot of like information space, right? So it's like, I think just to listen to a conversation takes up 20 out of the 40 bits consciously. And so, yes, there is a huge filtering thing happening, and it does depend on what your priorities are. So I definitely think there's merit to that. But as for it filtering out entire conscious thoughts, I'm not going to even pretend to speak to that. I have not looked into that. And so I'm not gonna go beyond, what I know. Now, the second thing, though, that I do think is very interesting is coming from Robert Sapolsky, who I do think is more credible. So Robert Sapolsky is if I'm not mistaken, he is a neuroscientist and definitely a professor at Stanford University. And he's written this book called Behave, The Biology of Humans at Our Best and Worst. And he talks about a little bit more of, much like what this guy was talking about, how the subconscious, or unconscious rather, is basically priming or filtering out information depending on words that cue these subconscious processes. So I'm going to read this and then, just talk about the implications for verbal affirmations. So, words have power. They can save, cure, uplift, devastate, deflate, and kill. And unconscious priming with words influence pro and antisocial behaviors. One of my favorite examples concerns the prisoner's dilemma, the economic game where participants decide whether to cooperate or compete at various junctures. And behavior is altered by situational labels. Call the game the Wall Street game, and people become less cooperative. Calling it the community game does the opposite. Similarly, have subjects read seemingly random word lists before playing. Embedding warm, fuzzy pro-social words in the list like help, harmony, fair, and mutual fosters cooperation, while words like rank, power, fierce, and inconsiderate foster the opposite. Mind you, this is not subjects reading either Christ's Sermon on the Mount or Ayn Rand, just an innocuous string of words. Words unconsciously shift thoughts and feelings. And, they get into, he has this last bit that's not important, though. So, going back to the affirmations, so if you take what that one video was saying as well as what Robert Sapolsky is saying, translate this to, if you're repeating this multiple times a day or at least once a day, right? I am worthy of good things, for example. Think about, if you repeat that, just how much you're priming your brain to see the world in a more good way, in a way where you are worthy. It's basically priming you to act and feel as if that's true. Especially when it comes to Robert Sapolsky's example, where it's like even random words, like one word, right? Like one word like fierce, or one word like cooperate or community, is changing your entire mental state and your entire response. So just imagine using positive affirmations like this throughout the day and getting those tiny cues, those tiny priming that can make things a little bit better for you. And then on top of that, I do agree with that one video where it's like, the more you say this, the more it's going to become your focus. And the more it becomes your focus, the more your conscious mind and your unconscious is going to work to find information that is aligning with that goal or with that focus, right? And so I think those two, let's say, pieces of evidence are extremely important. There's probably more to this, but I'm going to stick with those two pieces of evidence for now. And again, I'm not here claiming that I can manifest shit. That's just not me, okay? But I will say that just based on those two facts alone, this is worth incorporating, at least for me. I'm finding it worth incorporating on a daily basis just to kind of get that little extra edge. Now, as for how I'm creating affirmations, I do have this link here. I stole it from Dan Pena. I know Dan. So Dan Pena he's a fucking character. He's really funny. He's very extroverted. He's very much a showman. He talks a lot of shit. He's very braggadocious and he makes a lot of wild claims. But one thing that he does advocate for is affirmations. And I think he's one of the few people who has had just a massive amount of success financially, socioeconomically, you know, and then just in life where like I'm at a position where I'm like, look, okay, he's kind of crazy, but he clearly knows enough of what he's doing, you know, to get these results, right? So it's like, okay, let me listen to what he has to say. And he swears by affirmations. It's like he does his affirmations every night. He refuses to go to sleep before he does all his affirmations, and he like advocates for affirmations like crazy. So I'm like, okay, let me see how you do it. So here are his instructions, right? I'll put them in the description. But basically, you want to start with your dreams, right? Not just what you want. Make like your dreams, like your wildest, you know, affirmations, right? Or your wildest, you know, goals when you were a kid even. And then you're going to convert those into goals. And then basically you have to convert those goals into affirmations. And, you know, what I have in all caps here is you want to make your goals bold, unrealistic, bodacious, over the top, unconventional, and that you cannot accomplish in your lifetime. Which is kind of weird because, you know, most people, or not most people, but there's a line of thinking where your goals have to be realistic, your goals have to be measurable and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when it comes to affirmations, and especially when it starts working on the unconscious, you want it to be above and beyond what's realistic so that you're it's kind of like the concept of like shoot for the moon and aim, you know, shoot for the moon and then you'll land in the stars concept. So it's like you want to overshoot. Right. And so the more you overshoot, the faster your focus and your unconscious is going to work towards getting you towards what you know, the results in real life. Now, there are a few little pointers here. They, you know, most people, not just Dan Penny, but a lot of people recommend doing it in present tense for some reason. I don't know why, but you always want to include, begin each affirmation with I am. You want to have emotions tied to the affirmation. So it's not just this dry, I am going to be rich. It's like, I am happy, I am overjoyed, I am satisfied. And I think partially because emotions, the more positive the emotion, the more it registers with your unconscious basically. And with your mind, basically. If you have more positive emotions associated with something, the more you're going to, first of all, the more you're going to repeat it, which is kind of the point. But then the second thing is the more you're going to try and reinforce that good feeling, you know, through some of your actions throughout the day. And then, you know, so part of it, yeah, you're writing in present tense. Some of this is kind of reckless. Like I'm not going to pretend. I don't have any affirmations that go this well. Dan Pin is kind of, he's an outlier. He'll say shit like, yeah, I have a fucking erection and I'm having multiple orgasms. I am not recommending you do that, but I put it in there just to show how extreme the emotion can be, which I think is pretty funny. And then the last thing is just timing, right? So they claim, or Dan Penny at least claims, the best time to say the affirmations are right when you get in the morning and then right before you go to sleep because you want it to work on you subliminally, unconsciously. So anyway, in conclusion, like I said, this shit still makes me cringe. Even this thing that I'm about to put in the description makes me cringe. I'm not trying to look. I'm not one of those guys that believe in manifesting or anything like that. I'm not. But I do believe that this does give a tiny win. This does give a competitive edge. This does give a 1% improvement as opposed to you just listening to your thoughts all day, or at least me. My thoughts all day are not good. So it's like this does at the very least help me replace some of that self-talk. And I am finding over the past 3 weeks, I am finding myself in a much happier space, just in a much more positive space, much more encouraged space, much more motivated space than I was a month ago. And, you know, I'm very grateful for that. So, and I do attribute some of that to the affirmations and the repetition of that positivity in the morning and at night. So that's about it. Like, look, if you're cringing just as much as I am, I understand. So if you feel like this is a little bit out there, I get it. I'm not here to say otherwise, but you know, if you're looking for those little tiny edges and you're willing to try it, I would say go for it. So I'll put all the links in the description. I hope this was informative. I hope this was valuable to you. And you know, if you have any success with the affirmations, look, I'm still new to it. So I'm still like cringing when I do them in the morning. But if you've been doing them for a while and you have actual success stories, feel free to put them in the comments as well. I'd love to hear it. That'd be encouraging to me. But otherwise, hope you guys are having a great week. You know, blessings to you all. Hope you guys get everything that you're aiming for this week. And I will see you all in a few. Take care.